Hello and welcome to In the Envelope, an awards podcast. I am your host, Jack Smart, awards editor at Backstage, the most trusted name in casting. I'm here to spotlight some of the most exciting film, television, and theater awards contenders working today. Who is in the running? What makes an awards-worthy performance? And how can you, my dear listener, win a statue of your own? We're sitting down for intimate, inspirational interviews with actors and artists to get that insider's perspective on these questions and more. It's an opportunity for some of today's most talented stars to share their craft and career advice, and maybe, just maybe, provide a tantalizing glimpse in the envelope.
I've both succeeded enough and failed brutally enough on stage to learn that, like, I'm still alive. I'm still gonna try again, you know?
Yes.
And I've learned that it's the pursuit that is inspiring. You know, whether you succeed or you fail, the beauty is in the endeavor. What inspires me is when I see people go for it.
It's June. It's almost June. For us, it's almost June.
Tomorrow, yeah.
Yeah. Whenever this episode airs, it's going to be early.
Yeah, yeah. And it doesn't feel like it, but
what's going on in your, how's your life?
Oh, well, I just came from a casting, which is why I'm sweaty and gross.
A casting?
Yeah.
For what?
A TV commercial, voiceover.
Nice.
Congratulations. I only heard about it last night, thank you. Well, we'll see if
you heard about it last night?
Yeah.
You did it this morning?
Yeah.
That's the life of a working actor.
That's people. Right. That's right.
Damn.
So I was up early. But no, it was good. It was fun. And yeah, trotted on down here and ready to go.
Ready to go.
Talking about all our exciting interviews.
Yeah, I feel like today's is a prime example of why we do this podcast, because it's brand new Victor Dixon.
Yeah.
And I've been jokingly referring to it as the gold standard of In the Envelope interviews.
Yes. Yeah, I could tell you were enjoying the interview because you made some interesting noises throughout.
It's true.
Case in point.
You'll see. You'll hear it. It's true.
I'm not cutting them out, by the way.
Oh, not at all.
I'm not doing it because it's great.
Yeah. Brandon, he's, I felt like we spoke the same language.
Yeah.
I feel that way often with the theatery people, I think. He's also our second Aaron Burr we've had on this podcast after Leslie Odom Jr. He's the second Aaron Burr on Broadway. But Brandon, I suppose he actually was best known for that. He was also Tony nominated for The Color Purple, which I saw back in 2006, I think. And then more recently, Shuffle Along. But he was in Jesus Christ Superstar, the NBC Live telecast.
Which gave me panic attacks just hearing about the process.
Talk about a quick turnaround.
You have to have nerves of steel to do something like that.
Can't believe. I know. The logistics of putting it together were really, really interesting. And then he makes everything seem effortless.
Yeah.
Like, he's kind of so good that he's like, oh, yeah, no big deal. If you've seen his performance in this thing, it's like, how can you talk about that in a way that involves, like, oh, not a lot of work? Of course, a lot of work went into it, and we elucidate on that, but, like...
He struck me as someone who is unflappable. You know, and goes with things. You know, there was almost an improvisational quality to everything he attacks.
He called it, it's reckless abandon and it's focus. That's how he approached playing Judas in Jesus Christ Superstar, but I think that's how he approaches everything. That's how maybe good musical theater acting is releasing yourself into the moment and into the music, but
is
not
that
to the
moving from
point.
one to another, or is this simultaneous reckless abandon?
That's a good question. I feel like it's got to be both. Like, I feel like the part of the thing about training as a theater actor is you get your instincts to the point that you are able to have the focus at all times, and then within that to have the inventiveness, the originality, sometimes even it is a spontaneity.
Yeah.
And for a live televised musical concert TV special, where the cameras are on you, but maybe they're not on you, but they're swiveling around the stage all the time.
Yeah.
It blew my mind to hear that they rehearsed it basically once.
Yes.
With the cameras. That's insane. And they didn't start rehearsals until like a month before it happened, and insane.
He didn't think it was a big thing because he was like, yeah, it's just a 45-minute show. This is easy. But yeah, 45-minute show in front of millions of people on TV.
Millions. And as we discussed, he's there alongside John Legend as Jesus, Sarah Bareilles as Mary Magdalene, Alice Cooper is in it, Ben Daniels is in it. A lot of fun, like Broadway types that it was kind of fun to see and recognize. Also worth noting that this was directed by David Laveau and choreographed by Camille A. Brown. And for anyone who doesn't know, Jesus Christ Superstar is, of course, the Tim Rice and Andrew Lloyd Webber rock concert musical about Jesus in his last week of his life.
Do you want to give us a little medley of songs while we're...
I absolutely do not, because if we're about to hear like the sultry tones of Brandon Victor Dixon's speaking voice,
he gets a little poetic in the middle here as well, doesn't he?
Oh, he does.
It was that's something to look forward to.
This is why I'm saying it's the gold standard, because it's poetical sometimes, and it got quite philosophical or big picture, but he also had very practical advice, including some vocal care stuff I had never heard before. That was really, really fascinating. Obviously, for any musical theater performer, everyone has a different way of taking care of their voice. And I've been hearing a lot about that recently during this Tony season.
Right.
But his was kind of blew my mind, because quite honestly, whenever I hear something in these interviews that I've never heard before, it blows my mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, Brandon was super candid, and I really loved when he opened up about, he went to Columbia and then he followed that up immediately with auditioning for The Lion King.
Yeah.
And his talking about doubt and fear at that early stage in his career, I think that's really going to speak to people.
Yeah, definitely resonate.
To listeners. I think that's all we got to say about Brandon. We should make sure we get straight to it.
Let's do that sign-off again.
Let's do a sign-off. How do we do a sign-off for this?
I think pretty
Jamie,
much what we did, just with more
I'm not
energy.
Caffeinated.
Just take a swig. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Hey, if you are an actor or an aspiring actor, someone at the beginning of your artistic career, and you haven't signed up for Backstage yet and you don't know how it works, I have good news for you. Backstage is offering 30 whole days completely free just for our In the Envelope listeners. If you visit backstage.com/subscribe and enter the code ENVELOPE, you will have full access to the site where you can make a profile, upload a headshot, upload a reel, start applying to the thousands of casting notices uploaded every single day on the world's #1 casting platform. Again, we are giving listeners of this podcast 30 days completely free to try out Backstage. Go to checkout, that's backstage.com/subscribe, and enter the code ENVELOPE. If you want to be in contention for an Emmy or for an Oscar or for a Tony or for a SAG Award, do as many of the guests on this podcast have suggested and use Backstage. We are here for you. Again, free 30-day trial, backstage.com/subscribe, enter the code ENVELOPE. Although well known in the Broadway community for years of stage work, recently as Aaron Burr in Hamilton, and for his Tony-nominated performances in The Color Purple and Shuffle Along, Brandon Victor Dixon became a breakout star in front of a much larger audience this Easter, as Judas in NBC's Jesus Christ Superstar Live, the live telecast of Andrew Lloyd Webber and Tim Rice's rock opera musical. Brandon also created WalkRunFly Productions, making him a Tony-winning producer, as well as an ideal interviewee on this podcast. Get ready to have your mind blown by Brandon Victor Dixon. Thank you for joining us on the podcast.
Happy to be here.
I don't even know where to begin. I feel like you're having such a moment in time right now.
Am I?
And I feel like we're really thrilled to be a part of it, because those of us in the theater community know who you are, and we know that you're this triple threat, but to have this opportunity to suddenly be on
What's
stage.
What's the third threat?
Wait, what
are the three?
Acting, singing, and dancing?
Do not insult my brethren and sister by calling me a dancer, let alone a threat when doing so.
Of course you're a dancer. Do you consider yourself like an actor who sings?
I am an actor and I am a singer.
Okay, actor and singer.
Okay, absolutely.
Okay, cool.
I'm a performer.
That's funny.
This all-encompassing. There you go.
Sure. There's The Color Purple, there's Motown, there's Shuffle Along. Mm-hmm. But you'd never, it's so interesting that a big break in the sense of like showing yourself to a completely different audience and to a much bigger audience would happen in the form of like a one-time gig. It was a concert performance filmed live, and it was stunning. Well, it was incredible.
I'm glad it came off that way.
Yeah. Like what did you, first of all, how did you get the part? How did you get involved?
I was called into audition in November by Bernie Telsey, who cast me in The Color Purple, and was on the casting team of Motown, and I've known Bernie for years. But Bernie called me in, and I didn't think much of it because it's one of those things like, all right, whatever. But I love having on their minds the songs. So I was like, well, I'm gonna go sing for these people because I know I love the song, and I've always wanted an opportunity to sing it for something, so it might as well be this.
Cool.
And I didn't think anything of it until February rolled around, and actually my business partner, he is working on a project with somebody who was involved in the casting, and he said, it's weird. I just met up with so and so this evening, and they were with Bernie and David Laveau, the director, so and they were talking about you. He's like, I think you're gonna get a call next week, and I was like, they're still doing this? I figured after John, literally after John got announced, I was like, all right, I think I see where their palette's going. I was like, I think we're good. Exactly. But then I was like, really? They're considering that? And I was like, and then I started to get the feeling that it was probably going to happen, actually, from that moment.
Did you have more auditions after that, or was it just...
Yes, I did. I went in and I sang for them again.
Yeah.
And and sang, the Judas is Deaf and Heaven on Their Minds.
Yeah.
And what was so funny is because like my agents are like, okay, they want to, they're waiting to get everybody's schedule. I think it'll be this week or next week, but they want to make sure everybody's there so they can. And I went in there, like 4 people in the room, and I was like, I'm gonna have to do this again, aren't I? And then it's like, and I got a call that night. They really loved you. They're sending your tape to Andrew and to Tim, but Bob Greenblatt's gonna be in town this weekend, so you're gonna have to come back. And so I went back and I did it again.
So you went through and Sarah Bareilles and John Legend probably did not go through the same.
No. I highly doubt it.
Or maybe any of the other groups? I don't know. And that's simply because, like, for a production like this, they need like a headliner, right? They need like a big name or two.
I mean, I think when you're doing something like this and you're going to do it on television, you want to cast the best people. You also want to cast people that you know that people will want to see.
Yeah.
Because you want eyes on the project. You want your story to be seen. So I think it's a balancing act of determining like who are the best people who can bring eyes, and then once you've really secured enough of that territory, then you can start to kind of really, I think, expand the palette of what will make your show the best show possible.
Right.
And the show is told primarily through Judas's perspective and voice, so I can see why they would have taken their time to really make an individual sing very high songs over and over and over again,
indeed,
to remarkable quality and consistency until they decided they felt secure enough to offer the job.
So you really, really earned it. And then what was it like? I mean, do you remember the moment of you booking this? Did you know it would be this huge, this much of a shift in your career?
No, and I mean, look, life is very, very similar to how it was before April 1st for me. So let's not, I have many more notifications on my phone, but that's the only thing that has changed.
Interesting.
I think I did have a feeling though that I had the feeling that I was going to get the job before I got that call, and I just got the feeling that it was going to be a very full and a full experience, a very giving experience, a gifted experience, and that's exactly what it has been. Cool. Everything I received up until April 1st was wonderful. Just a wonderful process. They gave me a great deal, and everything that's come since has been lovely. But it's all cherry on top. It's just I've already been given what the gift.
Yeah, but I just love that it was a one-time thing. It's so interesting this phenomenon of however many million people tuned in.
Yeah, like 9.8,
Easter
something
Day.
like that.
That's nuts.
It's pretty cool.
But this all happened in February, so this was like pretty soon before.
Oh yeah, like 2 weeks before we got started.
Yeah,
because we started rehearsal February 16th.
That must have been just like a really intensive rehearsal process. I mean, the show was so polished.
It was just in the scale of it, but it was so well organized, and they made use of everybody's schedules very well because. Excuse me, at the time, I was finishing up a TV show. Sarah was finishing up Waitress. John went on tour for 3 weeks in Southeast Asia. He's super busy. Yeah, like, it's amazing what he did.
Oh, yeah.
To produce this, to star in this, to go on tour. Like, it was pretty remarkable. And Alice Cooper was on tour. They brought we started with 12 disciples, then they brought in like another 10, another half of the ensemble, then they brought in another half a week or so later, then they brought in the dancers after that, and we weren't really all together until the final 5-6 days.
And how much of those final days were like a full dress rehearsal with even like the camera work?
None. It wasn't until Friday.
Ooh.
We ran it on Friday
for
the first time. Everything before that was camera blocking, scene, we got to tech this, we got the band right now, so, because the orchestra didn't come in until Friday, so it's like, we got the band, but they got to go on break today, so we're just going to use drums and keys tomorrow while we do this section. And it's really time management. What do we have to hit? Which is why both Sarah and I were asking the stage managers to post the show order on Friday and Saturday, because you finish the scene and you're like, what is the next scene?
Right.
Where? Oh, okay. Oh, I got 9 minutes? Because then you get the commercial breaks and suddenly, actually, for the actors, it really paces out. Not for the ensemble as much because they're in everything, but when you really actually do it, I found myself, after we did it on Friday, I said, why have we been spending 12 hours a day for 4 weeks working on a 45-minute musical? I was like, this thing is fast.
Right. How interesting. It sounds like such a whirlwind.
Yeah, I mean, it very much was, but it felt it was very deliberately progressive, deliberately layered, deliberately intensified at each level.
And how does it compare in terms, were you doing any like on-the-job learning of, you've done camera work before, but there's nothing like doing a live stage show where also taking into consideration camera blocking?
No, because they made the theatrical build of the show the primary component. So very much just felt like building a piece of theater. And David Laveau's understanding of storytelling in theater and for camera helped make that a very seamless process. Because he built for the perspective of the live stage production. But you would find him, laying on the ground at weird angles as you're doing scenes so that he could, try and see what his shot is. And then you found us all, I think, as savvy actors and actresses, beginning to understand, I can give him far more story in this one shot if I stand here, so that way he gets Jesus, Mary, and he gets me. Just just making choices that inform your storytelling, but that are aligned with the efficiency of what you're trying to communicate. Because particularly with a piece like this, it's a concept album. It's not dense material in terms of its text. It's dense in terms of its emotional storytelling, its layering, and what is actually happening. But you don't have a lot to. You will find yourself listening to somebody sing you, a 32-bar response to the question you asked with your own 32-bar. You find yourself. So you have to really make it clear what is happening between all of these people in very efficient ways. And I think David was great at that, and how Camille helped shape the movement of the space, and then what Alex did with the camera work. I just think it really worked. It just connected.
Absolutely. There were these cool shots where there would be a ton of action happening, or that crazy choreography, but it would cut to you or to Sarah Bareilles, and it almost felt like Brandon doesn't know the camera's on him, but he's in character. And it is helping tell the story where we get to see a little bit from Judas's perspective in that moment.
And they designed it in that way, but it wasn't until let's say Friday, or then you get to Friday or Saturday, and they're like, okay, hey, last night we saw when you were doing I think you popped a lozenge as you walked towards the piano. So he was like, that's fine, but he's like, can you look at me as you do, so that I get what is happening with Judas as he backs? He's like, I know you're singing Heaven on Their Minds, and it's all these people around you, and you want it, but I need you to give me the whole first section to John, so that we get the cameras to show you that it's Jesus and Judas, and this is what's happening. Mark Platt, our producer, for one of the shots, when I do Damn for All Time, he was like, I know you're doing your thing. He's like, can you just give me this section to the left right here, and then give me this change on this lyric to the right? And he's like, and if you hold, when the flutes come in, if you go hold for 5 beats before you go to look into the money, the pouch with the coins, he's like, I'm doing a thing, do your thing, but just you can hold for me for a moment. I was like, got you, Mark. I can emote 30 degrees to the left. And then
Interesting. So is that like you said, it's like a theatrical production in that a director of a theater show will give you the same kind of thing of like, oh, that moment you got to cheat out.
Yeah, you're not in your light, or I mean, I used to have it. What's so funny is I used to have those kind of conversations in Hamilton all the time, and in general, because I'm well known for not doing exactly the same thing every time, or not doing exactly what you asked me to, because I'm contrary by nature. But but we find ourselves particularly like, wait for it. Like Leslie is like, I think his energy just runs a bit more cooler and smoother than mine. Like how he communicates his performance, and I can be a bit more erratic, fiery with I think my expression of things. And so I found myself I make different choices, and I had different, so they inform my movements in different ways. But you have to deal with the lighting, which is based on what Andy and Tommy and Lynn are trying to communicate through their narrative, and what they built with Leslie and how he was communicating. So you found yourself, balancing against that, because that's what the structure is, but also needing to give what made sense you thought for you and what you were doing. And so I find myself. In doing those sorts of things. But I think the fact that it was an immediate show, we were only doing one or two takes at it, it also made it, I didn't have time to think about why I didn't want to do this movement.
Totally. You can get in your head if you're...
Yeah, it's just like, I got that. And it was so funny because David Laveau, as a director, he's a very soft-spoken British man, very intelligent, very sensitive, and he will kid glove his actors. He's like, Brandon, if you wouldn't mind, see how it would feel if you were to open up on here and maybe take a step back. Let me try it. But you get to a certain point where I'll be like, what do you want? Do you need me to go over here?
Yeah.
Got you. We're doing this in 3 hours. I got you. I'm going to go over here. You need me to look right? I can do that.
Well, and that kind of like slapdash, like throwing it together, it actually works with the aesthetic of that show. Not just the production, like the actual, it's a concert. Like it is a concept album. It's also very symbolic, and to do it that kind, like I'm thinking of the lashings, all of these moments that were very symbolic. That's
embrace
true
the
of the lyrics.
theatricality of it.
Yeah.
Just we all know that we aren't really these people. We're not really in this time. It's okay.
Exactly.
We can tell the story.
It was part rock concert, in a way.
Absolutely.
And you guys were interacting with your audience differently than a Broadway show, it's safe to say, right?
Yeah. I think for all of us it was different. I mean, particularly so the way John embraced the people and the way the ensemble interacted with them, but it very much fit the time. The audience was the community at large who can get caught up in the epicenter of energy that build around certain people or build around certain movements. That's really, because that's the reflection of the piece. It's a man with a message that inspires a certain group of people to do unifying and good works, and then the celebration and the success of these good works begin to just become a celebration not of the message or the people, what they've created, but the celebration of the man and the deification of the man. And then it becomes not a mass of people embracing the message, but a mass of people caught up in the celebration and in the energy and in the frenzy of the movement. And so you go further and further away from what you're actually supposed to be doing, and the thing that will change and transform all of us, and the thing that forces us to do work and investment in ourselves, as opposed to giving the responsibility and the power to the idol that we've created now because we're caught up in the frenzy. It's all of that.
Yes, it's very 2018, or it's very like this particular moment in time in America, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our
it's
idolization of these people. And
it's a cyclical, and that's our spiritual mythologies. They tell the cyclical tales of us as communities. Whoever the prophet is this time, whoever the leader is this time, whoever and we repeat them in different ways over and over again, and we got to get better. We have to evolve at each incarnation.
That was so mind-blowing, especially since I had not thought about the audience's role in that way. They're very much a character, I guess you could say, in a show like that.
Absolutely.
But also, it must have been very, very different considering you didn't have an audience before the one performance. You didn't have a dress rehearsal with an audience.
Yeah, you didn't, but you are still... There's so many people working on a show like that. You are all in the room paying attention all at the same time. You're giving it, and I have found there's layering to performance. So it's about the text, and it's about the music, and it's about the words, and then it's about those things and the fellow actors, and then it's about those things and your space, and then it's about those things and the energy of the people in the space, and what happens when you look at them and when you don't look at them, when you use them as a mass or when you use them as an individual. And like I find that it unlocks different things for you. So for us, you know, once we had an audience, we were ready for that additional energy. We were ready to. I was ready to you know, let myself start to exist in a space where you are present, where everything that is happening, you are you're not hidden, you are present. And if you can give yourself over to that, then it means that then suddenly we start having an experience together. That's the possibility that a circumstance of that creates, if you can tap into it or not.
Sure, but you called it a frenzy, and of course it was. Like, that opening number was so, it felt like the audience was kind of freaking out. It's like, how do you give into that without giving in too much? And
you don't, and it helps Judas. It was weird. The opening number in particular, Heaven on Your Minds, because it is such this is the tale of what's happening right now and what's going on. Like, so it's very much like you need to listen to what the hell he's saying.
For sure.
And none of us, in fact, Sir Andrew said the next day, he's like, you know, I want to talk about how we discuss the audience, how we prepare them for the production, because the excitement is great, but you know, we want them to, especially the opening number, we want them to hear the words. We want them to hear, you know. And so, you know, when they're cheering during Heaven on Their Minds, there is an element of, okay, they're doing that, but you have to keep telling your story, and you have to keep. But it's perfect for Judas, because Judas's whole show is trying to get the people around him to listen to what he is saying.
Yeah, totally.
And they're not. Yeah. They're at a show.
They're caught up in the spectacle. Yeah.
You know, and that's that. But so it helped me. It was just like, people, listen.
Exactly. Yeah. But then in your last number, I almost feel like it's the opposite, where you had us as an audience. You had us as an audience by that point.
Right.
But it also just felt really celebratory, and you just like cranked up the energy in this different way. Now that you were clad in a silver
bedazzled
deconstructed tank top and such. And at one point you were like skrelting as you like threw yourself on the floor and spun around on the floor. And people were living. Like, it was
people were living.
So was that a different moment for you of like, well, the show's almost over, I have one last big number, I'm dead now?
Kind of. I mean, it's like, you know, as I was walking up the stairs to be revealed, you know, I sat there and I was like, okay, so
you looked like you were having so much fun.
And I was like, all right, you've done everything. You know the steps. You've got your lozenge. The notes are right. They're gonna come or they're not. So like, let's go.
Yeah.
And it mostly, but it's like it's reckless abandon and it's focus, because you've got to be able to breathe while you're running around and you're sliding around and you're screaming out notes for the Lord. It's so, you know, it's all of that. But you know, it's fun, but it's focused, and it's. And you are thinking about that thing you learned because you watched the playback yesterday. So you're like, oh,
cool. Whoa. Yeah, you're falling back on your training in those moments.
Yeah, you know, your training and your rehearsal and your focus, like, because there's a very easy to work and practice and then lose yourself in a thing, and that can be good, and sometimes it cannot be good. You kind of want to ride the line and make sure that the thing that you're really trying to get done gets across.
Yeah.
You know, so that level of awareness is what tells you what's needed, when and where. So I think that's kind of how that operates.
I like that, the abandon, but also like, you have to hit your mark. If you don't hit your mark, then no one's going to see that.
Exactly.
That moment. Yeah. Talk to me about this lozenge. What's the secret there? How do you take care of your voice?
You know, there are rest is how you take care of your voice. But you know, I do drink. I make elixirs of like cloves and lemon and ginger and cayenne pepper and stuff. But you know, there's this. I don't know what is in it. It's this Chinese herb lozenge thing that one of the dressers in Motown
It tastes really gross?
No, it tastes great.
Oh, okay.
But she got it for me, and it just opens you up and keeps you moist when you want to sing. And so it's the kind of thing, I'll either, if I have to sing a song later in a scene, I'll either tuck a piece of a lozenge in the back of my mouth, or I'll tuck a piece of an apple, like when I would do Rent.
Oh.
Because there's a whole song before he comes out and he sings as a reprise. I would stick a piece of apple in the back of my scene, so I go out, do the number, and then Collins would get emotional by a column before he would turn around and sing the song. So I would chew my apple and swallow it.
And the apple helps?
Yeah. Yes, because the pH in the apple is closest to that of your saliva. And so instead, like when you drink water, it'll keep you lubricated for a moment, but then it dries you out. Okay. The apple keeps you moist. And so then I'll go out and I'll sing the song. And that's so.
I've never heard that about apples, but I've also never heard that trick of the trade. Like,
just
you have
tuck it in there.
As you're singing.
Well, yeah. I mean, no, not as I'm singing. You tuck it in there before, so you do your scene. Maybe I'm talking, you know,
right.
But you negotiate
it there.
Yeah, and then you use it right before you got to go sing.
So like during this is in the middle of the show. Is this all down to a routine, like your Broadway self-care routine?
Yeah, it's things that I discovered, throughout the years that will help in different circumstances. And like I'll have Juice Press has a fireball. It's called a mother effing fireball, and so that thing, you have a sip of that before you sing any song, and you'll stretch yourself about a good whole step higher. I do. Cool. So those kinds of things, little tricks here.
These are great tips. This is great. This is great. To go back to Judas, I want to ask about, because obviously you did the same amount of homework of creating any role or of playing any role, where you had to characterize him and you had to think about you inhabiting this character, right? Mm-hmm. Did you look back on previous performances of Judas, first of all?
Not specifically. I did, I watched the movie, so I watched Carl Anderson's performance.
Which is quite different.
Is fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
And I would listen to him singing the songs. I listened to Carl Anderson primarily, because that dude was just in the pocket vocally. But for the performance itself, and for the show, no, I didn't look at any other performers, and I didn't really look at what anybody had done. I had a very clear view of what I thought was happening in the show. Like I said, I didn't know the show. I didn't know the music at all, but I did know Heaven on Their Minds. I'd known that song for many years, and I'd loved it just because the storytelling in it is miraculous. I mean, what it manages to communicate in 3 minutes is extraordinary.
Totally.
And you get everything that's happening emotionally with Judas and with Jesus and the ins and outs of what could go on. And so I'd always loved that. And what was funny, I performed it when I auditioned, having never seen the show. I did perform it kind of as a conversation to Jesus and the disciples, the apostles, But when I was going back in for the callback, I was like, let me watch this thing so I can contextualize this. So, so what's happening before, what's happening after. And I started it, and I was shocked to see that it was the opening number. And then he didn't even know that. In the middle of a desert singing by himself. I was like, well, okay.
Not what you expected.
I was like, not what I expected. No. So I was like, how does it start here? Yeah, so I was like, it begins. It was like, wow.
I see.
So
it's a new energy when you're like, I'm beginning the story.
Right. Yeah, it was just a whole other, but again, there was that element, like the storytelling is all very clear. So it starts here, and it's like, okay, this is what's happening.
Gotcha.
So for me, it was really about everything else flowed out from there, and the more I discovered about the numbers and Damn for All Time and the greater lengths to which myself and John and David would investigate these things, it just began to open up more questions, philosophical concepts, human concepts, or religious ideological concepts, and you find yourself at the end of Judas's death, and I told him, I said to David, I was like, there are a couple things happening when Jesus sings "Poor Jerusalem" and he sings, you only have to die, you only have to die. It's like that. David was saying, we're going to show you in that moment, because there's a moment where Judas is beginning to be like, what is he talking about? Jesus, something's going on with Jesus. It's like, what is he talking about? And I said yes, because that reflects on the Last Supper, where I say to him, every time I look at you, I don't understand why you let the things you did get so out of hand. It's like nothing that you're doing right now makes any sense.
Totally.
With respect to what you started, what you bit. So it's like you'd have managed better if you'd had it planned. That's my first moment where I begin to think, you're making us do this. You're actually going to make this happen.
Right.
And then when Judas dies, I said, when I come out and I say, my God, I saw him. He looked 3/4 dead. You beat him so hard that he was bent and lame. I was like, I've been directing that towards the priest. And I was like, it's not towards the priest. He is talking to God. My God, I saw him. He looked 3/4 dead. And it was so hard I had to turn my head. You beat him so hard that he was bent and lame. And I know who everyone is going to blame. I don't believe he knows I acted for our good. This whole time I've been doing this because Jesus is making me do this. Like he's spurning me. He's forcing me to go. You want me to do this. And at the end, I'm like, I had to watch him go through this thing that he walked willingly into. And I'm saying, it's like, I don't know that he even understands what the hell is happening. It's like, you're making us both walk this path that neither one of us understand. Because Jesus says it too. He says, before I was inspired, now I'm sad and tired. Surely I've exceeded expectations. Like, I'm doing this, but I don't understand why I have to do this. Judas is like, I'm doing this, I don't understand why I had to do this. You've murdered me. And
that's
now
so
I'm going to be condemned. And
so my God, when he says my God, it's not an expression. It's not my God.
No, it's my
He's
God.
Directing.
Yes, I saw him.
Yeah.
It's like, I saw what you did. It's like, what you made me do to him. It's like, and I know who everyone's going to blame.
Oh, yeah.
You sacrificed both of us, but he's going to be deified and celebrated, and I'm going to be damned for all time.
Yeah. Yeah. He starts to see this big picture, and it is all God is to blame, or God is the author of all of these events.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how do I feel about the fact that you authored all these events? If this is your will be done, it's
a crisis of faith too.
Right. And so, and I think that's the really big, great question that I hope the show can make us answer, because it's like you do see two people who you never hear from God. You never actually hear from God. But these two people walk this path to the destruction of themselves and the people they love because of what they believe they have to do. So if what we are each walking around believing that we have to do for the betterment of ourselves and everyone around us, but it is generally seeming to lead to the destruction of ourselves and the people we love, well, let's ask questions about how we're interpreting the things that we believe.
And what is free will and what is preordained, and how much of it is our fault and how much of it is...
Well, the only players on the stage were the people who made the decisions. No matter what why they thought or who they thought was talking to them or who they thought was making them, it was still only we were the ones who decided to walk the paths we walked and sacrifice the people we sacrificed, whether they were ourselves or each other.
Totally. Well, and as you're talking about his trajectory in that way, it very much reminds me of Aaron Burr. Yeah. Is it safe to say that, like, there are some strange parallels between Judas and Aaron?
Absolutely. They didn't occur to me until
They
didn't occur to me until one of our first press days, and people were like, "Hey,"
right?
And I was like, "Oh, yeah, you're."
And you didn't
correct.
know the show beforehand, so that was part of it too.
Yeah.
But you had just come from playing Burr for months, for a long time.
Yeah, a year. Yeah.
And what are the similarities? How did one prepare you for the other?
I think the similarities. I think there's structural similarities. You know, I think you can see.
He's a narrator. He's an antagonist.
Exactly.
Sort of
the anti-hero. You come into the show with a certain specific feeling and label already affixed to Burr, already affixed to Judas.
Totally.
And the text offers you an opportunity to see them through a wider spectrum.
Yeah.
You know, which hopefully allows us to see ourselves through a wider spectrum. So the similarities of those paths are quite clearly there. And the same kind of thing, you know, you see Burr at the end where he says, you know, it's like, now I'm the villain in your history.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, you know, for me,
that's him addressing God.
Right.
Yeah.
And my interpretation of Burr was always like, Burr really, really liked Hamilton and wanted to be down with this dude. We're both orphans with the same age. We're both smart. We're driven, you know, but at every turn, he just felt spurned by this cat. You know, Hamilton and the Sons of Liberty were like, nah, man, you're a dork, or you go over there, or, you know, you're always so controlled, Burr. What do you... Mind you, Hamilton was also like, you know, he was like, you need to do more, you need to act like this, or you need... Right. But it's that same kind of, you're amongst a group of people whom you share, you love, you care about, and you share the same ideals with, but you feel isolated amongst these people. You feel spurned by these people, so you seek... I'm seeking an ally in Caiaphas and Annas, or I'm seeking an ally in Jefferson and in Monroe. You know, so it's like those parallels are absolutely there.
I imagine you learned a lot as Burr.
Yeah.
Is it safe to say it's the most challenging Broadway show you've done?
No.
No.
I mean, no. Just in terms of partly because it's so wonderfully well constructed.
Okay.
Like it's very specifically constructed. It's a machine. That thing you start the turntable and the thing go. You know, and if you miss it. It will keep going without you. So you lose your line or you lose your step. It's like it goes. And because the material is so layered and rich, I was able to see a lot in it. You know, it opened my imagination. So there were so many things. I gave so many different versions of Aaron Burr over the course of that year.
Right.
You know, I was arrogant Burr. I was damaged Burr. I was wanting to be friends with Hamilton Burr. And I had so many different Hamiltons too. So there's there were different ways to walk through that journey. So it was easy because it was so good. And so it's just created so many ideas for me to just kind of jump in and out of, which is why I told the creatives, you know, this has been a great time. I love you all, and I thank you for the grace with which you've handled my insubordination.
Insubordination.
Because I was changing things all the time. So,
I mean, nobody minded, right?
Well, no, I mean, look, anytime you are going to interpret somebody's work, you know, you have to make sure you do it with intelligence and with integrity. So, no, they welcomed most of the things I did. But, you know, every now Alex Lackamore did have notes.
Oh, okay.
You know? He was like, oh, that was interesting. Can we go back to
rein that in.
I was like, yeah, we can go back.
And you knew Leslie.
Yeah.
And Lynn as well?
Yeah.
And Renee, of course. You knew Renee.
Yeah, Leslie and Lynn, Chris, Renee. Like I knew,
definitely.
I knew all of them beforehand. Tommy as well. So just through the community and everybody's quality work, you know.
And you jumped straight from Shuffle Along. When Shuffle Along closed a little earlier than was expected.
Yeah.
That was how you were able to do Burr.
Exactly.
It's been a couple of years, man, of constant crazy work.
It has. It's been very very good work. It's been very informative work. It's work that is very much it informed who I am as a human being.
Yes. And where does your work as a producer fit into that? Your identity as a human being, or do you count it as work as an artist?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, it's still a process of creation. It's just from another perspective, another level. And I just like the things I do when I'm on stage, I try to make sure I choose projects that are in line with where I am personally and speak to potentially the things that are happening to us in a community at large.
Very cool. Is that what advice do you have for those who are maybe interested in getting into that?
My advice would be seek allies, you know.
Oh, okay.
Learn to build things with friends. Learn to build things with friends and choose the right like-minded friends, you know. Don't be afraid to start small. You know, those are the main tenets of advice I give. Don't be afraid to start small and start things with friends, you know. It doesn't have to all be yours to begin with.
Wonderful. And what about the kind of early career acting side of things? You were telling me that right after Columbia, you did The Lion King, but you had to toil away at that in order to get there.
I did have to toil away to get there. You know, I ran 6 miles a day. I did yoga 3 days a week. I was just learning the songs and the scenes and training at them so that I could, you know, make these 10 a.m. auditions and sing this song right and overcome my fears, which sometimes I did and sometimes I didn't.
I see. Well, I want to ask about that too. Like, what fears do you have? Do you have moments of doubt, like on stage? Did you have moments of doubt on stage in Jesus Christ Superstar?
On stage, no. You know, fortunately, stage is the one place in which I don't tend to have moments of doubt, or at least I've both succeeded enough and failed brutally enough on stage to learn that like I'm still alive. I'm still gonna try again. You know.
Yes.
And I've learned that you know you know, a lot of the times it's the pursuit that is inspiring. You know, whether you succeed or you fail, the beauty is in the endeavor. I want what inspires me is when I see people go for it. I don't know if you get there or not. One of the most incredible performances I've ever seen is Elaine Stritch singing "I'm Still Here" at the White House for the Obamas. Wow. It's like 8 minutes long. She forgets the lyrics
all the time.
It's like the performance. And you're like, oh my God! You see this legend, and it's like she is gonna have the most massive public failure meltdown ever. And she finds her way through it.
Yeah.
And it becomes like the most triumphant thing I've ever seen, because the craft of it is all there the whole time, and her mastery of and acceptance of the truth of what's happening in the moment, and the support of the band to keep her, because that accompanist starts spitting lyrics to her, and she's like, let's go back, and they cycle. It's just watch it if you can.
Yeah.
But the fact that she keeps going and she finds her way through, and it only pulls through a greater honesty of the lyrics of I'm still here. I've been through Mahjong. It's like I'm still, and it's just like it's glorious to watch.
It's her mastery of the moment, did you say? Her mastery of
the moment, and her acceptance of the flaw of what is happening, of the loss, of the failing of her faculties, of the reception of that, and still finding her, not giving up, not panicking to the point where it's done. You stop. You found your way. She found her way back to the lyrics. She found her way back to the, she improvises. She makes a couple of jokes in the middle, and she gets there, and it's just...
It's like using failure as triumph, or like using it to fuel your inspiration.
Yeah, or just accepting if you can accept the moment, then you'll find the door. If I accept that I'm trapped in the room, I have to accept that I'm trapped in the room before I can find a door or a window, or if I'm just lost, if I can't accept where I am, then it's going to be harder for me to find my way out of where I am,
That was the sound of me, just like, that was pure acting advice gold. That was poetry. You have to accept that you're trapped in the room first, before you can find the door.
Yeah.
Yes!
I think we spend, and look, this is just me thinking about the things I'm feeling today, and in general, it's like, you spend a lot of times caught in the emotion of what you're feeling, and also in like fighting the emotions without letting them pass through you, process through you, because of how it's going to feel, and then sometimes until you can really just accept that it's like, I'm feeling this way because I'm angry at myself,
right?
Or I'm disappointed. It's like, this is the room I am in. I'm in the room where I drink all the time. I'm in the room where I smoke weed I'm in the room. All right, is it time to get out of this room? What does the room look like?
Damn.
How can I get out of the room?
I mean, you mentioned the successes and the failures you've had on stage, and obviously we at Backstage like to focus on the successes, and we're your cheerleaders. But what exact moments of failure are you talking about? Are these like early in your career, or do they still happen?
I mean, failure is the wrong word, because nothing has stopped. Nothing has stopped, and I think that that's an important thing to understand about the things that I've labeled as failure, or that we label as failure. Nothing has stopped. I'm still here. I'm still going. But Lion King in particular, I just had a very difficult time singing Endless Night. And, that was compounded because it was a growing place for me as a vocalist when I got the job. And auditioning, I was 50-50. Sometimes I would crack through that song. Sometimes I would sing it and it'd sound great. So I knew I could do it, but I didn't trust that I could do it every single time. And it's, I left school, I'd left college. It was the first time I was doing a professional production, but it was also the first time that I was struggling with any material in a production I had ever done. So just a lot of new things.
Yeah, you're trying to figure out what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, and the responsibility of it. But I don't know how to fix things that don't work, because nothing has ever not worked for me in that realm before, you know? So it was all of that, and the pressure of it, and then the self-doubt and the fear that you won't get it, and they're training Simbas in secret behind your back, because they don't trust that you're going to make it, because you sound like I've never cried more in my entire life.
Those are normal fears that of every actor, like.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But my cast was really supportive, and so was Disney and the creative team. And you discover that it's psychological, because all the notes that I sing in Endless Night, I also sing in Hakuna Matata and He Lives in You. It's just, there becomes a fixation.
Yeah.
I would work with the MD, and when we'd rehearse it, sometimes he'd forget to transpose Endless Night down a half a step. Because they would transpose it down. That's what we started to do for this show. But he would forget to do it when we were practicing. Yes. That's what they were doing on Broadway at the time, but they hadn't told me. So once they told me, we can try it down a half a step, I was like, we can try it down a half a step? But, when we would practice, sometimes he would forget to transpose it, and I would sing it without any problems.
Oh, okay.
Because it was psychological. I didn't know. I thought it was down, so I would sing it with ease. So when they finally came back, they said, we think you sound great. We're going to move everything back up to the right keys. I said, fine, just don't tell me when you do it.
Oh, wow.
And so they did it one time randomly in the middle of the week. And came out great, and the cast gave this huge cheer for me backstage. And I never had a problem with it ever again. Never had a problem with it ever again. But so it was psychological. All psychological.
How interesting. I'm loving this idea of like you as an actor, you seem to understand, as a musical theater actor, you seem to understand the song itself is providing you every tool you need. You just dig into the song and you dig into the lyrics and into the melody of the song. And is that safe to say that provides you the characterization, the storytelling, the beginning, middle, end?
Yeah, it leads you to what notes you're going to choose, whether they're already on the page or not. It's yes. It's like okay, well, what's the emotionality where I was talking to a young kid the other day about Rent and that he lives in your reprise, and I was telling him, I was like, a part where he opens up is like where he goes, I've longed to discover something as true as this is, and I was like it's that's when he opens up, that's the cry. I was like, and so I sing it differently, I change the note on it but it's because that's where it happens, it is the storytelling, because if I think about things as a singer or the notes, then I can get nervous. Am I going to crack? Is it going to do what I'm asking it to? Am I going to? Gotcha. But if I can think about the feeling and what I'm trying to communicate, then I'm going to do it.
Okay. So that's what riffs are. Like that's what people, when they talk about riffs and choosing different notes, usually like high notes. For you, it's actually based in kind of an acting decision.
Absolutely, and I think for good singers, there very few singers are good enough to just sing.
Yeah.
To just be letting you listen to what their voice can do, as opposed to listening to their voice. Almost all the best singers recognize I'm here to not listen to what your voice can. Don't show me what your voice can do. I want to listen to your voice. I want to hear the note. I want to hear the purity of that tone. I want you to just carry that. Whitney, just sing that. Celine, just sing. It's just like it's these glory notes that just carry, because I'm listening to the richness of your voice. You're inviting me into the vibration of your tone, and that is, you're allowing the emotion to swell with that lyric where you've brought me. So it's I'm thinking about the story, and because the songwriter was thinking about the story. That's what they're trying to communicate the thing. The composer's thinking about. So if you are going to choose the note, a different note, it's got to be coming from what was on the page.
Sure. You're channeling the songwriter in that moment.
Yeah.
And every time you do it.
I don't think I've ever seen... It's like watching Alan Menken do... When Alan Menken watches Lillias White sing his songs, it's like this is how my music is supposed to sound.
Yeah.
Like when she is singing them.
Yes. When you see the creator and then the performer, and the creator's like, yep, that's exactly what I envisioned.
Yeah. He didn't write all of those rhythms. He didn't write every single... That is the song. I knew when I wrote it like this and I gave it to her, she's going to do it. That's the song. That. Bring it to life.
When I think of that kind of, that kind of like singing the story and finding the story in the notes themselves and in the purity of that voice, I think of LaChance. That's the person she's like the storyteller of... She tells stories in her vibrato, It's that kind of like... It's
one of those things. I was like, I loved all, everybody's return to The Color Purple and their celebration of Celie and of a wonderful performance by Cynthia. But the thing I always recognize, particularly that song, The Color Purple, I remember when they were writing it and when we were building it, and the person who figured that song out was LaChance. She figured that song out. It's like everything that anybody has done with that song since then is based on what LaChance discovered. And that key change and that note, that pure note just carrying you through. It's just like that is the moment.
You're talking about the song Color Purple, right?
The Color Purple,
not the reprise of that song?
I'm talking about the song The Color Purple,
okay. And she helped form it. I love stuff like that.
And because I'm not talking about, it is I'm Still Here is another beast she figured out.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm talking about like that Color Purple reprise at the end where we're the Color Purple song. It's like all of that, she...
I didn't realize. So you were there for the development of that.
Oh, yeah.
For them writing new
we only
stuff.
We only had one act when we went down to Atlanta. Okay. And Marsha and I wrote a whole new second act. And kind of based on what we were all doing.
That's so cool. Yeah. And you did work. Is it safe to say you worked with Sir Andrew Lloyd Webber for Jesus Christ Superstar?
Yeah. He, look, obviously his work was done.
It stood the test of time.
Right. So he was really in and out. Just, he would check on tempos and making sure lyrics were coming through clearly.
And he did orchestrations and stuff. Yeah.
Excuse me. So, he and his team were there kind of maintaining the integrity. But they really let David and Camille shape the show, that we were building.
Camille, that stuff was amazing.
Yeah.
That was awesome. We should wrap up. I want to ask, what for those actors who are in that position of maybe they're just graduating from Columbia and they're trying to be the next Simba or some such, what advice would you go back and tell yourself? What do you wish you'd known in those days?
I wish I'd known that, there's time enough. There's time enough to try things and to mess them up. And to try something else or to try the same thing again. Mm-hmm. I wish I'd been able to embrace that. I wish that I could say whatever it is you say to yourself to alleviate yourself from blame and self-doubt and feelings of lack of self-worth. I really wish I could start working on that more then. That's what I would do. And because our profession is so, it's a process of evaluation. And even as a successful actor, you're probably going to get cast in 30% of the auditions you go to.
Sure.
As a successful actor.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with rejection and personal evaluation all the time. It's all, ultimately it's all how you feel about yourself. Mm-hmm. But you're caught in systems and constructs that will make you go through this process all the time. And it can be very easy to fill yourself with self-doubt or a lack of self-worth and to break yourself down in those ways. And to really fight that process and to seek support in that process because everyone around you is doing the same thing.
Right. You might as well stick together and find those like-minded artists, like you said.
Yeah.
Because every actor has to go through that.
Yeah.
I love the idea of feeling insecure about them secretly training a Simba behind your back. That just sounds like a normal... I feel like an actor experiencing that fear is in isolation. They feel like, I'm the only person experiencing this. I'm so isolated. But it's what everybody goes through.
Well, David said to a bunch of to the ensemble when we started the process, he said, anytime we all start a show and we walk into a room like this, we all spend most of the time, or at least the first half of it, afraid that we're going to get found out.
Found out.
And that once we're found out, we're going to be out of here. And he said, I want you all to know that you have all already been found out.
Yeah.
And that is why we brought you here. So be everything that you are, because that is what we want.
That's how you banish the thoughts of not enough self-worth. It's just having someone say, you are worth it because you're here.
And I've already found you out.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to accept that, you're here because you need to be, and the smart self-destructive person would be like, yeah, because I've shown you what you needed to see to get me in here. It's I'm good enough at what I do that you don't know who I am. Because once you discover who I am, you're not going to want me here because I'm not. Interesting.
Brandon, thank you. This is awesome. Any parting words of wisdom for our listeners? Tell us how much you love Backstage.
I love Backstage a great deal. Backstage, particularly when I was in college, always made me feel connected to the community, and it maintains that to this day. I love Backstage. I'm here for Backstage all day. And I say to everybody out there, make sure that you are saying yes to as many people as possible and that you are advocating for as many people as you possibly can, because if we all help each other more, we won't have to worry about helping ourselves so much.
Wonderful. Beautiful. Way to end it on a perfect high note and a little bit of propaganda for Backstage. This is perfect. In the Envelope, an awards podcast, is recorded at Lotus Productions, Hyperbolic Audio, and Big Yellow Duck in New York City, and Soundbox LA, Mark Grouse Studios, and Buzzies in Los Angeles. Like, rate, subscribe, tell your friends, and follow us on Twitter at In the Envelope. Thanks as always to producer, editor, and all-around podcast extraordinaire, Jamie Muffett, and thank you to the team at Backstage. the most trusted name in casting. That's Peter Rappaport, Rawaan Alkhatib, Francis Ramos, Caitlin Watkins, Lauren Routt, Mark Stinson, and especially Kasey Howe. For more awards and industry coverage, head over to Backstage.com. Thank you for listening. Tune in next time for another glimpse in the envelope.